Good afternoon, everyone. Attention, attention. My name is Jason Fell. Welcome to Northside Festival's high-tech fashion and design session. We have a small but intimate crowd today. I like it. Welcome. So I'm the managing editor of Entrepreneur Magazine, formerly the tech editor at Entrepreneur. So we have a really fantastic session here. It's all about, wearable tech and fashion. Since we have such a small crowd anyway, so just out of curiosity, who here is wearing any kind of piece of wearable tech? One? I am. I'm wearing a Pebble. Anybody else? One? Well, that's one more. I had this same exchange at a bar on the Upper West Side last night, and I can tell you that nobody raised their hands, so thank you. Actually, all I got were really strange looks and actually some really angry looks. So I'll take one. We're in a much better crowd. You guys are obviously interested and engaged, so thank you very much. With that aside, let's get right into introducing our fine panelists today. So to my right here, to your left, we have Logan Munro. Logan is co-founder and head of engineering at a company, a startup called Ringly, which just launched their first product this week. Logan, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and about Ringly?
Yeah, my background is mechanical engineering, and I teamed up with a woman who was working on a product for jewelry to make jewelry smarter and sell products, primarily for women, where it's not about necessarily the functionality as it is about expressing yourself through what you wear and having an embedded technology in that. So we just launched our first product on Tuesday, and it's a ring that can connect to your smartphone, and it can alert you if you have calls or text messages. It can light up and vibrate, and of course it doesn't work when I want it to. I'll fix that later. And will allow you to be alerted about any kind of notifications that you want, or any kind of pretty much anything. Or can the idea is it really lets you stay away from technology and avoid your phone, not have it out on the table all day, have it in your purse, but not constantly checking it. We have been working on a prototype for the last 8 or 9 months. Just launched our pre-orders, and we've been making it here in New York in the Diamond District, and working with a lot of fashion designers, also talking to a lot of manufacturers in the technology space. And I'm here to talk about how those two worlds collide, and how they don't quite mesh, and you definitely need some finesse to get the fashion and the tech together.
And you also brought a Ringly for all the women in the crowd today, right? You get a Ringly. No?
No promises.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have promised that. Next up on Logan's side here, we have Gareth Price. Gareth is the tech director at a company called a firm called Ready Set Rocket. It's a really exciting company. Gareth, why don't you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So we are a digital agency based in Soho. We do a lot of work with the finance, fashion, media, entertainment kind of sectors who are all very interested right now in wearable technology. My background is very much from the computer science, artificial intelligence side of things. So it's been a great learning experience getting into the fashion side of things and not wearing my sweatpants to work and things like that. So we recently launched a campaign for Kenneth Cole, which was based on the Google Glass platform. So this was the first major advertising campaign using Glass as a platform. We were really excited about the level of engagement we got. We got somewhere around, I think, 6% of all Glass devices registered on this campaign. And we saw some incredible engagement with it. We learned a lot of really interesting things about how people react to advertising on wearable technology. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of those insights with you today.
People engaging with advertising. Fantastic.
It's true, it happens.
I know it happens sometimes. Rounding out our expert panel today, we have Pauline Van Dongen. Pauline is a fashion designer who integrates wearable tech into her designs. And don't listen to me, Pauline. Please tell us more about what you do.
Hi, my name is Pauline. I'm a fashion designer from the Netherlands. After finishing my master in 2010, I started my own brand. And in the past 4 years, I've been specializing in wearable technology. I believe that technology is the only way to reach through innovation in fashion. Last year, I started my PhD research called Crafting Wearables at the Technical University in Eindhoven. And this research brings together different partners from both the fashion field as well as the technology and science field. We have companies like Philips participating, but also Freedom of Creation, who's part of 3D Systems, a 3D printing company, as well as a textile museum with a textile laboratory. So, to tell you a bit more about my work really quickly, one of my recent projects is Wearable Solar, which integrates flexible solar cells in fashion, so to generate sustainable energy through your clothing. I have the dress right here. I'll pick it up later and show it.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Just I can't be your model. I'm just letting you know. Okay.
No worries. No worries.
Thank goodness. Anyway, right. So wearable technology to the intersection of tech and fashion is it's really fascinating. It's one it's exploding right now. So I'm really honored and excited to be part of this panel. But let's scale it back. Let's start with the basics. So wearable tech, guys. Why now? Why? It seems like a lot of you can't talk about a project with wearable tech that's really been 8 or 9 years in the making. I mean, I guess you can, but I mean, the technology is really starting to come together now. So, guys, why now? Why would you say it's blowing up, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk very much from the technical aspect of it. My other founder, Christina, had the idea for several years and really talked to a few people and got some positive feedback, some negative feedback on was this possible. And when we started diving into it in depth, it turned out that the technology that we needed to use and the resources that we needed to have available only came out actually really only in the last 9 to 10 months in terms of us being able to connect to iOS, to be able to connect to Android, the manufacturing abilities. And that's all from the technical side. But I think in terms of the public's acceptance of wearable technology, we were pitching this last year, and we didn't really use the word wearable tech. It was starting to become more of a buzzword. And then CES in January, it was everywhere. Everybody was talking about wearable tech, about fitness monitoring and tracking. And then now it's become partly due to the success of things like the Pebble and the Fitbits and the Jawbones. There's a lot more acceptance of it, especially in the mainstream. It used to be more of a geeky, why would you wear computers on your wrist? What's wrong with having the phone? Do we really need to be connected all the time? But I think now that people have been seeing the reality, but also the products work. It's not that they get disconnected every second. And to prove that, I was connected to the wrong ring. So this is lighting up now, which I can show you the vibration as well later on. But it does just work. There's a lot of new technologies, Bluetooth Low Energy, which is driving a lot of this that has just come out, and then Bluetooth 4.1 will allow these products to talk to other products rather than just a central hub, and that's going to drive a lot more innovation in terms of how we connect. You can have light bulbs stringing information throughout your house without having to have a central hub. So I think there's a lot from the technical side, but then having the marketplace and new products coming out in the mainstream have improved the awareness as well.
Well, I think you read my mind a little bit. You've kind of touched on a number of the questions that I have for you guys today. But yeah, I mean, as a person who wears a Pebble, I mean, the technology works fantastic. However, I will say that I do still be called a geek.
Yeah.
People see it on my wrist and they're like, "Oh, come on, dude, seriously?" Yes, seriously, it works fantastically. Anyway. Pauline?
Well, I agree with you. I think the fact that the developments are so rapidly improving, and the fact that electronics are becoming smaller, flexible, and even washable really allows for a better integration and thus more desirable products. Also, I think that the fashion industry is slowly starting to embrace the fact that technology can actually be seen as an aesthetic and as a new design tool. For instance, it's funny because as a wearable tech designer, suddenly you get certain questions asked that normally you wouldn't be asked when you just work with regular fashion. So when I'm placing solar cells on a garment, people are like, "Yeah, but why the solar cells?" And whereas if you would wear studs on your leather jacket, no one would really, it's just a element, a decoration or a aesthetic. So I think it's interesting.
I don't know if I could pull off the studded jacket, but I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think, the fashion industry is really in need of a change. It's so fast. It's constantly, accelerating, and until the point that it just doesn't work anymore. I think people have lost the idea of what value fashion has. They don't know what kind of resources it takes, the hours of making, the distribution, and I think technology can really bring a change to that concept.
Gareth?
Yeah, I think there's some great points so far. They're what I had in my mind originally. To add on to that, I would say that the availability of connectivity as well, like everybody now has a way of connecting to the internet, to this like global network of knowledge in their pocket, and it's now, if you make something like Ringly or like Google Glass, you don't have to worry about how do I make the connectivity stack, how do I actually get things on and out of the internet. And with us, when we're building software for these things, especially on the advertising and campaign side, there's no way we're going to go to a client like kind of Cole and say, hey, we need $1 billion in a factory in China to make all these a headset that you can give to people. But the fact that people can easily create these small devices that could create like a personal area network around a person, and they don't have to worry about some of the hard problems, some of the expensive problems have already been solved, then you're seeing people able to build on top of the knowledge that's come before them. I think I'd also add that, fashion and technology is really just an example of how software is becoming part of every industry, is able to take advantage of these technological innovations. So even like motor cars, advertising is another one, fashion, it's all these industries that originally were very handcrafted, very low-tech industries, but now software and computer technology has advanced to the point where it can be about the fashion, it can be about the car, it can be about the advertising, and it's not about technology.
Yeah, technology is really permeating everything. We're talking about the intersection of technology and fashion, but then it kind of, even fashion and technology will then transcend, and like you were kind of alluding to, like the Internet of Things, and we'll get to that. Actually, I should point out that I've come prepared with some, let's be honest, some mediocre questions. So I'll try to get the conversation going as well as I can. We'll save some time at the very end, so I'm sure you guys have also come prepared with some really good questions. So we'll hold off the last like 10 or 15 minutes for that, and we'll organize that. Right. So, forgive me, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but any kind of articles that you're reading on entrepreneur.com or any of the other tech sites, you can read, yesterday, today, and tomorrow about how the wearable tech industry is really poised to explode, right? While others, you can get some more tempered views on the industry. That's, basically warning that, right, and it kind of gets back to this whole idea of fashion, that the idea of fashion, the wearable tech is really, it doesn't really appeal to the mainstream yet. Guys, what do you think about products that are on the market now, like the Pebble and Google Glass and anything else? Do you think the current selection of devices, like Logan, I know you have a product that just launched this week, and Pauline, you're doing some stuff that people haven't really even seen yet. Let's talk about the current, the current lineup of products, not maybe specifically, but just generally. Do they have what it takes? Does it really have mainstream appeal? Any one of you guys?
I think they're not going to survive unless they do. What we've seen, especially in the fields such as personal computing, mobile computing, and cell phones, is there's been such a drive towards improving the specs, improving their performance, that we're almost reaching a limit in many cases. They come out with these new phones now that are 1080p. They have more pixels than anybody can see, and you sort of lose interest. Why do I need that many pixels? Can't you make it have another feature? So they start iterating on the design of it, the style, making it have more features, but also making it more personal. Hey, you can change the colors of this. People are buying phones not because of how fast they are or how many pixels they have, but because of the colors of it, or because it has a great brand, or they associate with some celebrity that's endorsing it. So there's a lot more than there was 10 or 15 years ago in terms of the need to differentiate based not just on technical specs. And I think the fashion is definitely driving that. And also with the the competition in the mobile phone space, it becomes much more easier for other people to enter because there's a lot of byproduct where we can make cheap electronics that are very, very small and very, very high performance.
I feel like at the moment, none of the devices we've seen are anywhere near approaching mainstream adoption. I feel like they're really kind of for nerds and the spouses and pets that allow nerds to attach sensors onto them.
Like
so
me,
there's nothing out there where anyone is really wanting the item for anything other than its technical capabilities. It feels like MP3 players before the iPod. Like they were kind of these weird, quirky little things. You see this huge kind of Cambrian explosion of devices where everybody's experimenting, everybody's trying different things out. And then you find a few winners in that marketplace, and 95% of the things that we're seeing right now will kind of disappear, never to be seen again. But it's a great time to see all that innovation happening and to be at, it feels like a really early stage of something that could be much, much larger. I think even then, though, I think the IDC research was saying by 2018 there'd still be less than 1 billion wearable devices out there. Compared to like 6 or 7 billion Internet of Things devices and probably 4 to 5 billion smartphones. So I think they're always going to be kind of a niche thing. Like we're kind of looping wearable technology here under the idea of like a smartphone where everybody has something that does kind of the same thing. But with the things like Ringly have a fairly niche appeal, like they are for women who want to wear fashionable jewelry, and with small devices that contribute to like a personal network around you as an individual, then there's no reason that everybody has to have like a one-size-fits-all device. So you might see that there's medical devices, but there might be hundreds of different medical devices that are tailored to a certain condition. I don't see there being like an iPhone of wearable technology kind of thing, just because the units themselves are so small and have like the power from them comes from the ability to customize and personalize what data you're recording about yourself.
That's a good point. I mean, because you look at those IDC numbers, and when they say that the market is exploding, I mean, it can be because it's, we're starting from small or nothing, and we're, the numbers that they are citing are vastly bigger than they were, but in comparison to everything else, I mean, it's still this something that needs to build momentum. Pauline, what would you add?
Well, I think the products that are out there are very much still in the gadget phase. And as a fashion designer, I really want to stress the importance of the desirability of a product. So, fashion it's a language, it's a way to communicate identity. So if you want people to actually wear these things, you really have to make it in such a way that it's not only comfortable, but also, makes them feel good and self-confident. It has to fit their personality.
So self-confident, people shouldn't get harassed for wearing technology. I don't know is anybody here in the audience, a fan of the Jon Stewart's show? Yes? No? Daily Show? You guys are. You're just not raising your hands. Anyway, that's fine. So last night, I think it was last night, they kind of ripped. I don't know. Did you guys see this last night? Okay, I saw it online. It's fine. So they kind of ripped Google Glass wearers, a new one, if you will. So are Google Glass wearers ever going to not look like idiots? I mean, what's the evolution here?
This is a wearable technology panel in New York City, and no one out there is wearing a Google Glass.
I know.
So it's, I think, Google Glass is an example. It's a great conceptual product, and it's been like kind of a preview of what that world may look like. But I think there's just anything the way you're strapping a computer to your face is going to look inherently kind of ridiculous. There's no way to make it look good, especially because with the glass where it's right in front of your eye, it's kind of mediating your connection to the world, and it's anyone you interact with is going to get the sensation that, hey, this person wants to put a computer between me and you. So I think anything that involves strapping a physical device onto your face is always going to look kind of ridiculous. Even then, I think it's still like there's still a weird perception you have a camera in your face kind of thing. So it's taking those kind of online rules and applying them to the offline world, and I think it's.
I find it very interesting the decline of the Bluetooth earpieces. I mean, that was very big a few years ago. Now hardly anybody is wearing Bluetooth earpieces. But then also you think about cell phones, where the push was how small can we make the cell phone? What's the smallest we can make it? Now the push is how large can we make the cell phone? Who's got the biggest screen? So there's some areas that have switched in perceptions, and some where the another another form of technology has been modified to kind of fill the gap. So I think that we've moved away from talking on the phone to looking at the phone, and there hopefully will be some more innovation with the glasses, or with being able to project something in front of your eyes in a very non-obtrusive fashion, or even contact lenses, things like that would be fascinating to see.
Google's working on that too. So.
I don't see like a flip-flopping between styles. I feel like with a cell phone, it's something you can put in your pocket. It's very easy to change with fashion. Whereas with wearable technology, I think it either has to be beautiful or invisible. Like if it's not one of those things, then it's just going to be like a weird device you like strap to yourself, and you're always going to look kind of weird.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. It definitely has to become invisible at some point. Yeah, it has to. I really believe it has to work from the inside out. And if we can reach such integration on a yarn level, for instance, like working with conductive yarns, making stretch sensors as such. Even the solar cells, like integrating it on a yarn level and weaving a solar harvesting textile. I mean, that's when it's really going to take off.
Well, that's actually, you bring up a great point. So, right, so again, getting back to this intersection of two different industries, right, technology and fashion. We were talking a little bit before the session about some of the difficulties of actually bringing one of these products to market, right? So you're dealing with technology and the way that a lot of the technology companies do their business usually, and then the fashion industry, which has a completely different model. And I know, Logan, you and I were chatting about a bit about this, but maybe you can kick us off, and then the other guys can kind of chime in. What are some of the difficulties just bringing fashion and tech into one product and then bringing it to market?
I mean, there's not only a conceptual difference in terms of, the fashion is about personalizing, is about creating a product that people can identify with and reflects their personality, whereas the tech is very much functional. What can it do? What can it do for you? And can it be compatible with as much, sort of have a very broad appeal, whereas fashion is a very individual characteristic. Beyond that, the technical abilities of being able to manufacture electronics is tremendous. I mean, we can make things down to a very, very small and detailed scale. We're working with our jewelers in the Diamond District, where when we talk about tolerances and sizes, they're sort of like, well, we'll give you whatever comes out. That's the size it is. I don't know what the tolerance is. I've never had to worry about that. And fitting a circuit board inside a piece of metal that doesn't have a tolerance, or can vary by up to a quarter of a millimeter, or sorry, a quarter of a centimeter, is quite a challenge. So. I think that I think what's going to move is the fashion world in becoming a much more controlled and standardized process. But being able to talk and have the same people in the same room definitely creates some conflicts, just in terms of, one of the other things we were talking about is when you create a new tech product, there's usually a few different models. The iPhone might come out with some different colors, but largely they're creating millions of the same product. Whereas if you create, for example, we're creating a ring that has different platings, different stones, different sizes, and so we have over 20 different individual products that we're releasing as our very first line, and that creates a logistic nightmare in terms of how do you make sure people get the right products. It creates a manufacturing nightmare because nothing is at a large scale if you're cutting it 20 different ways. And it creates just a confusion in many people's mind about do I want this product? What's the difference between that one? And if we're not touting the specifications as the selling point, we have to focus on some of the other areas. But people will wonder, is this product that has a certain stone different from this? If you're creating fabrics as well, what is the performance of this dress versus another dress? How do you quantify that, and does it really matter? But some people will care and some others won't.
Pauline?
Well, I think it's quite strange that fashion is all about the new, but the industry behind it has been largely static over the last decades, and it doesn't really allow for much innovation because of the speed. When I, for instance, work with a knitting conductive yarn, doing tests and trials. I mean, I can't just go to a knitwear manufacturer and he cannot just stop his machine. He just has to produce and produce and produce and deliver. So I think that's one of the main hurdles. So you have to find places where you can actually experiment, and then you have to convince these quite traditional, whether it's manufacturers or salespeople, that this is actually something meaningful. at the same time, yeah, obviously also like working with people from other disciplines, you speak different languages. But I think for me, it's been always very exciting, that part. Yeah, and also, I mean, convincing the electronics industry of the use of this. So, for instance, with wearable solar, when I first knocked on the door of several solar cell manufacturers, they were like, fashion? Like, wow, we never thought of that. Like, how are we going to do this? And then, you know, at some point they actually see the market, because, I mean, textile is not only used in fashion. You can also think of like sails of boats or tents. So there's a large market opportunity for them as well to you know, develop into that direction.
Well, you're talking about industries that maybe don't get it, seeing the market for it. Can we see your dress now?
Sure.
Can we
yeah.
Can we see what you're talking about?
So yeah, this is the dress that I made. Right now you don't actually see the solar panels because it has this modular design element. Basically, I started working on this a year ago together with a business developer and a solar energy expert. And we started looking at the solar cells that were available and the way that they could actually be integrated in fashion and textile. We looked at the surface area that was needed to actually, you know, generate power that you can actually do something with. So let me just open up. So now you can actually see these very thin film solar cells, which are from an American company, actually. We've integrated 72 of those, both on the front as well as on the back. And when wearing this dress for 2 hours outside in the sun, you'll be able to charge your phone from 0 to 100%. As you can see here on the side, from the pocket, there's a little plug coming out. We're now working on actually integrating inductive charging so that you only have to put your phone in your pocket and you don't even have to plug it anymore. Yeah, and there are more improvements to be made, of course. This is still a prototype product at this moment.
So you can charge your phone and work on your tan at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, we can use the generated energy for other interactive qualities. I mean, like I work with Philips on the integration of light, so you could think of you know, charging during the day, lighting up at night, for instance.
Well, and you know, you mentioned the other markets, right? So like the boating industry. I mean, if you were on a sailboat, or I guess even a powerboat for that matter, you had, you know, those kinds of cells on sails or other kind of canvas elements on a boat. I mean, that's huge. Keeping electronics and batteries and all kinds of things charged.
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
open ocean, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact, I mean, if we're all going to be wearing more and more of these smart devices that need like continuous energy supply, like we need to come up with something that's more sustainable and actually wearable instead of having all these kind of bulky, rigid, uncomfortable battery packs with us that are also polluting. So.
Well, and you just said uncomfortable and heavy. What the dress itself? I mean, is it heavy? Is it? No,
this one is absolutely not heavy. I mean, the solar cells are super thin, like paper.
Very cool. Very cool.
And you mentioned talking to, you know, Philips and them being surprised about incorporating that into fabrics. We've seen that as well. But the other way around, where you talk with fashion designers and they almost say, well, I didn't know you could do that. There's nothing on the product. There's nothing on the market right now. I just assumed it wasn't possible, and it's just the fact that nobody has done it before, and you know they'll look at some of our devices almost as if it was a magical, like how did you do that? Whereas when we talk to tech people, they're sort of, yeah, okay, that's fine, but why would you want to make it look good? Who cares about that? And it's very, very different worlds, just not in the terminology, but just the motivation behind working on it. So it's very exciting, as you said.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, as a fashion designer, you need quite an inquisitive nature and curiosity towards the tech because you really need to delve deep into it. I mean, you don't have to learn everything. That's why you're collaborating with people. But of course, you have to understand what it takes. I mean, building a circuit into a dress is not, you know, you can't just cut up the fabric afterwards, or like, you know, you need to be able to repair things. And this is also something that we need to look into because the system, I mean, the way people deal with electronics versus the way they deal with their garments is such a different thing. The life cycles are also different. And what if we're all going to wear these wearables? How are we going to deal with repairs and guarantees? And you know, we can't just discard these designs that include like valuable resources and like all these metals. So the whole the way that we consume fashion has to change as well.
Well, listen, this is a fantastic conversation, and it's actually moving along a little bit faster than I thought. So I definitely want to save some time for your question and answers session. I'll just ask one more quick question since we've already touched on it. So, right? So fashion, wearable tech, Internet of Things, right? So let's talk about how this how fashion and tech is really going to integrate into the connected home, in smart cars, etc.
Yeah, I think, in many ways, people have been talking about this for many years. I remember reading about Bill Gates' house in the 90s that was all connected and had everything, and that was the future, and it never really happened. And, the Nest is come out, and it is great in theory, but a lot of people sort of said it and forget it, and it doesn't necessarily get people all that excited. It can save you some money on your heating bill. Yeah. Having your refrigerator order items for you has been something that's been talked about for years. Oh, you're out of milk, we're going to put it on the Amazon shopping list. But I'm not sure that people are necessarily...
Do you get your milk from Amazon?
or wherever you get it, but being able to, I don't know if people get excited about it. It's something that's useful. I think it's inevitably going to happen where a lot of things are connected just because the technology to do it the price has come down, and there's just so much competition that if there's a coffee maker that's connected for $5 more, people will say, sure, why not? Maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't, and some people will, but it'll become standard and commonplace enough. But I think the real drive is going to be how do we improve the sort of smart way of using it? How can we develop algorithms that predict what people are going to want to do? And I think Google has been starting on that with their Google Now. Depending on where you are, what you're doing, what you've searched for recently, can I predict what you're going to be doing next? Apple's trying to incorporate the iBeacons, figuring out contextually what are you doing, and why are you here, and maybe I'll push an ad to you, or maybe I'll provide some other information to you. But as soon as smart things can start pushing things out to you, whereas a vending machine says, hey, you haven't eaten in 15 or in 2 hours, would you like your favorite type of candy bar? It's 10% off right now. That's a pretty scary world, and can really play on people's impulses, and there's a sense of almost gamifying it, of how can you include people in the world around them in a way that makes them feel like they're winning or participating and doing better than their friends. And I think that's gonna start happening soon.
Interesting. Okay.
So I think the main problem with all the fantasy scenarios of getting in your car and the AC comes on and the coffee maker comes on, you arrive home and there's fresh coffee in a cool house. And that all is technologically possible right now. And the issue is really interoperability between those devices. I recently hooked up my lights to an Insteon device so I can mess with them on my iPhone, and it's kind of fun. But if you go onto smarthome.com, which is like the big retailer for these things, and you filter by compatibility, there's 29 different systems that you can filter by. And if you buy a component that works with a different system, like, you're out of luck. And this is like the manufacturers who are promoting the smart home thing. So I feel like the success of the internet really came from the openness of the TCP/IP protocol, which let anybody in the world connect a system to it and build something on top of it. So you had these little upstart companies, may have heard of them, like Amazon, Facebook, Google, starting in dorm rooms and able to connect into this global network free of charge, without having to pay licensing fees, royalties, with the APIs being open and accessible. But right now, like, if you want to use the Insteon device, I pull up the crappy Insteon app that sometimes works. Then for the Nest, I log into the Nest app, and then for anything else, there's a number of like terrible applications for it. And if I wanted to start a company and build an application that would bring all this stuff together with a really nice interface, I couldn't do it because these interfaces are proprietary and locked down. So I feel like the wearable technology and smart home stuff is going to be severely hampered by proprietary protocols and people putting up walled gardens, which makes sense for individual companies because they're trying to grab as big a slice of the pie as possible. But it's always going to relegate it to being like a niche interest or something for the wealthy who can afford to buy Apple everything, or the Bill Gates house, which I'm sure was entirely Microsoft stack. Until there's like some work around opening and standardizing these protocols, like I don't think it's gonna be stillborn. I don't think it's gonna go anywhere until the underlying protocols are opened up and anyone can build on top of these platforms.
Well, I just want to add to that I think, I mean, fashion has a lot of potential in terms of our connectivity, especially the fact that it's something very intimate, it's something we always wear, like we always have it with us. It's very personal. Yeah.
Questions? One in the back. Do we have a microphone or anything, or they just... Okay. Just speak loudly.
All right. So one of the things we see in the market today is that there's a lot of devices, and they definitely have a lot of very good features. But we see users don't really come back after they start using a device, and after a couple months, I would be really interested to see out of 100 people after a year, how many actually stays with the device, right? So what are some of the solutions to solve the user retention issues?
I think that's a very valid point. We get asked a lot if we have fitness tracking in our ring, and it was something that we've looked at. We have an accelerometer in there. We have capabilities for that. But as you mentioned, a lot of the anecdotal evidence that we've gathered is people will put on the Fitbit, put on the Jawbone, wear it for a few months, maybe 6 months, and then okay, I've improved. I did this many steps, but what does that mean? And Nike tried to improve that, and Fitbit does that as well with the gamification. Can you beat your friends? But really, what's driving them to use it every day is something that we thought a lot about, and that's why we think the notifications is a real aspect. And our drive is to create a product that people will almost feel naked if they walk out of their house without wearing it. Well, they think, oh, I need to put my Ringly on, otherwise I'm not going to be notified. So it's being able to make it personal and something that you incorporate into your everyday life is something that and relevant to what you're doing. Whereas some people worry about fitness after a doctor visit and then forget about it 2 months later, and they have their New Year's resolution but don't follow through. So I think you're absolutely right. It's a challenge, and the solution will come through making people integrated into the product output.
I think the answer isn't so much how can we trick users into using this device more. It's about creating devices that actually solve real problems for people. Most of the devices out there at the moment are kind of gimmicky. Like and we have a lot of it come through the office for evaluation, and it's sitting there on the desk, and it's like, hey guys, you can take this home anytime you want. And it just kind of sits there gathering dust because none of it really solves real problems. I feel that's a criticism that can be leveled at the tech industry in general, the current generation of tech. Have our basic needs kind of been fulfilled? What are the real human needs that we can fill? Like having a smartphone in your pocket connects you to everyone. Connects you to people, you can find things easily, which is genuinely useful to living my life. But with a Google Glass, it's kind of nice having directions and things, but it didn't make the trade-off for having to bolt the device to myself, remind me to charge it, and have me pay for the thing in the first place. The trade-off wasn't there. And I feel like wearable tech right now is kind of a solution in search of a problem. The technology exists, but what are these fundamental human needs that we're solving with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely then lacking some kind of emotional value, or can't create a certain attachment.
Even if it was a status thing, iPhones and iPods definitely have something I think Apple has been incredible at, is commoditizing these devices and turning them into desirable luxury goods as opposed to technology. And their recent hire of, I can't remember the lady's name, the Burberry lady who went over to Apple, is a really interesting prescient thing that they're obviously looking at that. If you had wearable technology that you were putting on, and because it's a status thing, because it's like, oh, you have the Ringly Platinum or something like that, and it's a luxury device that you just paid thousands of dollars for, then it's something more than, it becomes more than the sum of the parts, which I think is the foundation of fashion. I mean, you can go out right now and you can buy a T-shirt for $1, or you can buy a T-shirt for $1,000. And the difference in that product, the manufacturing cost is a much narrower range, but you're getting far more than the cost of the materials. And I feel like with wearable technology, everybody is so focused on the technological solution, and there's no one who's really done a good job of turning these things into status items that you're proud and you're excited to show off and display.
And the interaction of the users as well is Very important. I mean, one of the things that I think helped the Fitbit is that it does last a week. You don't need to plug it in every day. People are comfortable plugging in their cell phones every day because it does provide a tremendous amount of utility. But having addressed that, you don't even need to worry about it. It just works automatically when you walk outside or walk into.
Any more questions? One more question. Okay.
You mentioned that we're still in like the gathering phase. As we move into the more of the fashion meets function, wearable tech, do you see that it's going to be, fashion brands that are 30 years old like Kenneth Cole, or people that were born in the wearable tech industry moving this along? Or do you think, what are those two worlds colliding going to look like? If you can look in your crystal ball.
I can answer that directly. We've been to fashion brands and said, hey, are you guys, our initial goal was to partner with existing jewelers and license the technology. And the feedback we got was, we don't like to be first movers. We want someone else to do it. Come out with your own product and we'll look at it, but we're not going to be the ones to do that. That's not our field. I think they're trying to look at it. If it is a big fashion brand that does come out with some good wearable tech, it'll be because of acquisitions. It will unlikely be because of organic growth within the company. There's definitely a lot of benefit that's come through the younger generations that are working directly with these products and technologies today.
Our experience as an agency has been a little different from that. We've actually seen that within these companies there's a lot of desire for innovation. There's a lot of interest in the field. So the people that work there are people like us who are really interested in this stuff. Just getting like a $1 billion manufacturing line to suddenly start putting sensors into everything is a huge shift in their business model. They're really interested in engaging with wearable technology, and things like Nike was one of the first movers with the Nike Fuel Band, which was a really interesting move into the clothing becoming more than just clothing. It becoming, instead of going to a store and buying some Nikes or buying some Kenneth Cole stuff, you're engaging with that brand on a more personal level. So you actually end up with this kind of relationship with the brand itself. So instead of that's something we found with the Kenneth Cole Google Glass stuff, was when we tried to make advertisements and we said, how do you feel about having an advert shoved in your face? People absolutely despised it. It's a very close medium. It's very personal, very intimate. So I think the traditional idea of advertising, where there's a trade-off of being interrupted for a few seconds so I can enjoy a product, is going to go away, and you'll have to have these much more engaging, like people will have to want to go and get the Kenneth Cole app or the Nike app or whatever. And engage with that. I feel like there's a lot of interest from those brands, and as soon as they see what's going to work, then they're very interested in moving those directions. I don't see them putting sensors into everything, but I do see them coming out with like branded like watches or bands and something like that. And these brands have a lot of equity and goodwill built up around the status side of things. So I think with smartwatches, I could very easily see like a large fashion brand releasing like a smartwatch or something like that. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use, like, it's definitely not something we've talked about, but it's something like a Kenneth Cole smartwatch or something like that, where it's people are willing to pay a premium for the Kenneth Cole name and all that brand equity that's built up. But it uses commodity technology that's acquired or purchased from smaller companies.
Well, listen, 45 minutes have gone by really fast. I'm already getting the notices from the back that we're over time. So I want to thank everybody for sitting in and listening in on this great conversation. My name is Jason Fellman from Entrepreneur.com. I'd like to thank Logan, Gareth, and Pauline one more time. Give them a round of applause.